Selectmen's meeting for the 27th of August, 2019. Would everyone please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, public comment, and we're going to start with Mr. Vieira, please.
Mr. Chair, just to make the audience aware with the new format that the board approved for the consent agenda. So the items listed under H, consent agenda, unless a board member holds them, will be taken with one vote.
Okay.
So if there's something that the audience wishes to address on the consent agenda list, they would need to do that during public comment for the board to consider. So when we do get to H, that will be a single motion and they'll go all at once. So if there is public comment on anything for H, it should come up now.
Okay.
Can the board comment on them at that when it's moved, or should they comment?
That should, everything should, if you want to hold, if the board wishes to hold an item and do it separately, you can do that.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. Anyone from the audience would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Tom?
Yeah, Tom Mikas, 73 Marmion Way. I want to thank the board for changing your agenda to make the executive session last. I think it's a much better use of the public's time. Don't have to wait out in the hallway for an indeterminate start time, and it's probably a better use of your time, so you don't have to worry about the length that you're taking.
Well, it also depends on any of the issues that, sometimes we might need to have people earlier, like the law firm or something along those lines. But thank you for letting us know. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I had asked you to...
Could you just please identify yourself?
Oh, Patricia Pierce, 35 Broadway.
Thank you.
And I had submitted a letter that I had hoped you would consider sending to the NRC. I have a second letter, which is even more important. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that no one knows anything about the reactor. I've spoken with people, young people, old people. They don't even know it's there. They don't know it's discharging. So I think what I'm calling for now is to actually stop the operation, remove the reactor, and there are stored fuels on the site. It's been operating for 30 years. It has 100 tons of uranium every 2 years. And we don't know where the used uranium is. It's probably on site, at least some of it. The ocean is rising. When I first moved to Rockport 21 years ago at Old Garden Beach, there was white sand, dry white sand, from the wall down to high tide, which was about 50 or 60 feet. Now at high tide, the ocean is up to the wall. It's also rising in Seabrook. It's rising everywhere. There's no dry sand at Cape Hedge or Pebble most of the day because the tide is so high that when it goes out, there's no time for it to dry out. The reactor is crumbling. It has cracks in it because the salt water in the marsh is getting into the concrete. So I think it's time to think about this now, even though you don't want to and nobody wants to talk about it. It's a major permanent pollution, and 1,000 years from now, it'll still be there. We won't, but it will have been there forever. And it's killing the radioactive debris from the process of fission is killing chlorophyll. That's in plankton. That's in trees. You'll see that the trees won't change color vividly as they usually do because 30 years of 100 tons, 50 tons a year fission is happening. It's been happening. They're licensed till 2050. This really cannot be allowed to go on, and I'm going to try to get the other towns to make the same decision to insist that the reactor be removed. So I realize this is very too much, but it's not too much. It's not even enough. It's too late. Mm-hmm. It's been 30 years.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Toby?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. You have a process put in place for dealing with the de minimis easements, de minimis meaning, you know, trivial, of no great concern. I don't approve of the process. I thought it was much better when those had to go before a town meeting. But you require the advice of the Finance Committee and the advice on whether the easements would have unfortunate financial effects on the town, and the planning board on whether they would have effects on planning for any town projects. So at least there's a process. There's no such process, or at least not a public one, for selling tax title land, and there certainly ought to be. At least one of the lots that you're proposing to sell, the one on Straitsmouth Way, is well worth preserving. That's 3.5 acres, exceptionally beautiful oak trees. I believe there are wetlands in back, and that would be a fitting addition to the Kieran Preserve across the road and just a trifle further down. You're probably well aware that the neighbors are up in arms. At any rate, there is no process, and I think with each of those things that you're going to sell, you ought at least to ask the Open Space and Recreation Committee. And apparently that wasn't done. I raised the issue at the Finance Committee last night and said that, you know, these sites were possible sites for affordable housing. Mitch Vieira points out that at this stage, simply giving the board permission to sell the lots, that's not precluded. But that's not the way you're headed, and there is no town committee to deal with affordable housing to advise you one way or another. So the last time we sold tax title lots, we threw away the one on High Street that would have been an ideal site for 2 affordable houses. And here we go again.
Sarah, did you want to?
You know what, I was going to, but I think I'm just not.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
It was just too much in there.
Yeah.
Beth Brenner, 49 Granite Street. I have so much to say, but I'll keep it to 2 things. I live on right near Back Beach, where they have the 4th of July bonfire. And I've noticed that it gets smaller and smaller. And this year, after 1 hour, they put it out completely. Now, I live there, so I know enough to close my windows, roll in the awnings, and have a marvelous time watching the bonfire. I think it's just one of those things. I don't know when they started it, but it's been running for so long. I hate to think that eventually it's going to go away. I do have some neighbors that want it to go away. They're the same neighbors that want the concerts at the gazebo to stop. That was one comment. Now the other one is, I feel really badly on Saturday and Sunday mornings when I'm sitting on my deck, looking at the water, drinking my coffee, watching the divers, and always a policeman come to ask them, God knows what, why are we bothering these people? And I know they're supposed to have a permit, which has been on the books for years, but all of a sudden we're asking them about the permits. I just think it's terrible. I think the police surely must have something better to do with their time than to come down. They almost look like they're embarrassed when they're asking these people for their permits.
They could be very easily responding to calls from neighbors of divers.
So here's my thing. If you're going to make the divers get permits, what about those people that have yoga classes down on Front Beach? What about that other group of people that have an exercise class down there on Front Beach? Sometimes they're at Back Beach. These people that are participating in these classes are paying for these classes.
Right.
And also, I know a woman from Marlborough that comes up here and she does a plein air class. She pays to take this plein air class. These 3 things are taking place on Front and Back Beach. Why is it that they don't have to have a permit, but the divers have to have a permit? I just think that either we'll all have permits or none of us should have permits. But I especially just want no permits.
No permits?
No permits.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
I got a call this weekend from Stephanie Rosayo. And she did call the police and asked them to get down because there were two people, a male and a female, in a state of undress, shall we say. And that's one of the main reasons that people get called in. And you may see things differently, you may not see it that way.
I've seen all the bits and pieces.
I get it. That's more information than I needed, but thank you. But that's one of the reasons, and one of the other reasons is that there's not a compliance to the, we have a rule that's on the books now.
Yeah.
That should be complied with. You don't just set it aside. If we want to change it, we can do that, that's fine. But there's a rule on the books now and it should be followed. So the police are just doing their job at the request of citizens who are calling them to do that.
Yes, and those 3 citizens' homes, those people don't even stay here.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if they're there
So,
for
all right,
5 minutes
so
or
then-
50 years.
So then I think
Yeah,
that the
they do.
artists and the yoga people and the exercise people should all have to
Yeah.
get permits.
We're gonna get a comment for you.
Mr. Chairman, through you,
Please.
if they're on the beach, just like the divers, they're required to get a permit as well.
Well, then,
Be-
shall I be
use of
calling
a
the
beach and
police?
park permit. If somebody feels or is concerned about a question or about that, they should contact the police department and they will respond appropriately.
It seems like a waste of our resources, but I feel really badly that every time the divers show up, the police show up. Wah, wah, wah.
They just showed up.
And
you very much.
Here's the police now.
We're leaving now.
I'm truly sorry that those guys have to go there. It's
Okay, here we go.
Uh-oh.
All right, so,
Bring it back around.
uh,
You should have them for coffee after the call.
yeah.
Have them over for tea on the deck.
Okay, so we're going to go to interviews for committee appointments. The first one is Suzanne Blake, if you'd like to join us at the table there. Welcome. She is interested in being part of the Memorial Day Parade Committee. Is there a motion?
I move that the board appoint Suzanne Blake as a member of the Memorial Day Parade Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Moved and-
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? Welcome.
Welcome.
Suzanne, can you just mention how
At
you
one of the
became?
microphones.
Yeah, at the microphone so we can get it.
Matter which?
Yeah,
Yep,
you can
sorry,
stand
go
right
ahead.
there. What made you become interested in this particular committee?
I got dragged into it.
Okay.
No. Actually, I've been interested, and then a friend was on the committee already and needed some help, and many hands make light work, so
Sure.
I said I'd be happy to help, and have done it for the last couple of years.
Great.
Now in a more official capacity, I guess.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Well, thank you for doing it. Any other
Happy to do
comments?
it.
or
So this will
questions?
make 2 committees, or are there more?
3 altogether,
3.
but this is just once a year, one meeting, and then the one-day commitment. Also on the Council on the Aging and the Housing Authority.
I'm your liaison, so I want to get involved early on this and see what we can do to help out.
On
So-
which committee?
On Memorial Day.
Oh, you are?
I am,
Oh,
yes.
good.
Yes, so let's work with me. You and I have a communication channel available to us, so we can, we'll take care of that and make sure it happens and goes off without a hitch.
Sounds great.
That's awesome.
Yep, we love communication and assistance, so much
Good.
appreciated.
My pleasure.
Yep.
Love Memorial Day.
I know.
Yep, it's the best.
I know, very traditional,
Yep.
and we want to keep it that way.
Yep.
We have to make sure we can continue to get the Twin Lights tonic, though. It's huge. The kids have to have it at the Spirun, so.
Yeah, that's, you don't mess with tradition.
No,
I
absolutely.
actually had a family tell me who had, for some reason, had to go to the Gloucester ceremony this year, and they said, while that was nice, they said nothing beats the Rockport, our parade and ceremonies.
Right, I agree. Yep, so that's why I'm involved.
Great.
Yep.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
All set?
Thanks,
Sue.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 0. The motion passes 5-0.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Our next person that we'd like to interview is George Langer from the Thatchers and Straight Smith Island Town Committee. He'd like to join there. Is there a motion?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that the board appoint George Langer as a member of the Thatcher and Straitsmith Island Town Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, well, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little background on your
So
resume?
we've had a house here for 10 years, and 3 years ago I got involved with the Thatcher Island Committee, or Thatcher Island Association, I guess, and go out every Wednesday. I've been a regular for 3 years, and then over the winter, Sid Wedmore asked me if I would help with the boat reservation, so I looked into a application that we could use. Eventbrite proved to be the best choice. And we automated, in effect, the boat reservation process, which I'm sure was a very satisfying thing for Paula Eldridge, who did it by phone all the time. So there's that. And Sid asked me if I'd be on the town committee, and I'd be delighted to. I think it's a great resource. I think it contributes a great deal to the town of Rockport, makes it a better place to live and also a better place to visit. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns or?
No, that's one of the best committees in town. It really is, and it's a great group of people
We
who are
love
so
all our
dedicated.
committees done.
We're speaking about one. We do, but we're speaking about one in particular tonight, and I think they do such a great job, as do all committees, and so I'm glad to see you step up. It's great to have the caliber of people that we have on those.
oh, thank you. You make me a little nervous.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Paul Center, who would like to be on the Thatchers and Straitsmouth Island Town Committee as well.
I move that the board appoint Paul Senna as a member of the Thatcher and Straitsmouth Island Town Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion?
Paul just can't get enough.
He
Yeah.
can't.
Keeps coming
He
back.
misses it already.
No, I don't.
Why are you interested in this committee, Mr. Center?
I've been an assistant keeper for 12 years, and I did not renew DPW, and I need a new job.
Yeah. Good. Did you stay out on the island this year?
Straitsmouth.
Straightman?
Nice. How was that?
It's a whole different, totally different. It's night and day.
Yeah.
It's like New York and Pigeon Cove.
Yeah.
Wow. And where's New York? Straitsmouth?
Thatcher.
Oh, Thatcher. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to go to Thatcher to get some tools, and the geese, the seagulls, the tourists, everything is just get me out of here. And I went back to Straitsmouth, and it was
So why do you think there aren't?
no
in this-
seagulls,
I
no
know,
birds.
Why are there no, because we fish off Straitsmouth, why are there no seagulls there?
Theory has it that ground rodents are going after the eggs.
Got it.
Oh.
Which would take care of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, did you spend a whole week out there? Nice. Good.
One long week.
Long week. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very nice. Any other comments, concerns?
I'll stand by what I said on the previous.
Yeah.
No, just thanks, Paul, for
Thank you, Paul.
continuing to step
Thank you.
forward.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed 0. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Paul.
Okay, street performer interview of Paul Sullivan.
You want to wait on the motion for this?
Is, yeah, why don't you do that? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
Very good.
So, we are here on a renewal of the street performer license.
This is
It
It's
first
an initial
time.
issuance.
It's an-
Initial issuance.
Yes.
So if Mr. Sullivan wants to just discuss why he would like a license, then we
Yes.
can go.
Can
through
you
it.
give us a little bit about, a little background and why you would like a license and things of that nature?
Sure. I've been a musician since I was about 8, play a number of instruments. And so I've performed in clubs, I've performed in different venues, and one of the venues I've performed in recently is street performing. And I've done that in a couple of different areas, and so last summer I'd come to Newburyport with my, I performed in Newburyport as well. I came to Rockport with my girlfriend, and so we enjoyed the shops that were here, and there was a street performer that was performing, and we liked that. We said, this is a really comfortable atmosphere, kind of a community atmosphere up on the neck, bearskin neck. And so, so she suggested, hey, yeah, it's a good place for you to play. So I played here a couple times and asked the people who had businesses if I could play at their business, and so I did, and people loved it. And Roy Moore gave me lobster rolls, and people were very friendly. It was a nice community, so I felt very welcomed here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I said, this would be a good place. And I learned just in June that you needed a license. So I figured, okay, well, I might as well apply for the license.
Okay.
So I see a guitar over there.
I wasn't certain if I was supposed to perform or not.
Oh, it's an audition.
Actually, in Cambridge, Mass, they have an association that you have to become a member of. And so you audition to make sure you reach a certain caliber before you get your permit. So a friend of mine has played flute there, and so she told me all about that, and I said, maybe I should bring my guitar.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chair, we have this application moving forward. In conversations with the police department, non-Corey related, just to be very clear, there was a concern raised about this particular license, so the chief and the lieutenant are here to discuss a little bit on the concern that they have relating to this particular issuance.
Sure. Okay. Gentlemen.
Good evening.
Lieutenant, do you want to?
Sure. I was asked to be here. I had an interaction with Mr. Sullivan towards the start of the summer down in Bearskin Neck. We got a complaint about a person performing without a permit. And I approached him on that, asked him, who he was. If he'd had a permit, he told me no. We talked about music in general. I play guitar too. And I just found it very difficult to get the information I needed from him in terms of from an identification standpoint. I explained to him that there was a permitting process. He stated he didn't know. I basically told him that he had to move along. There was some challenge, basically, because he said he was on his friend's private property. He was collecting money from people. They were throwing money in his guitar case. So I explained all these things to him, but when I asked for things like a date of birth, I think, and social security number, I was met with resistance, so to speak. I was uncooperative. Wasn't overly rude, but he wasn't really complying with what I was asking. So I refrained from any further, questioning with him, and then I went into the store to talk to the store owner. I was actually asked to leave the store, trying to get further information from them. So it was kind of not a great experience from my standpoint. I didn't have a lot of things I could do other than ask him to move along.
Why were you asked to leave the store?
I don't know. I guess I was interrupting their business.
That's
So it just, with the permit, he didn't have a permit, and I was trying to get the proper information, to document our interaction.
Lieutenant, when you asked him to leave, did he leave
Yeah, he eventually packed his things and left.
eventually?
Yep. Yeah, it was, from the time I was in the store and came out, I believe he had left the area.
Mr. Sullivan, why wouldn't you answer the officer's questions?
Should I get the microphone?
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, actually, I welcome as many questions as you'd like to present to me. He asked me my name. I gave him my name. He asked me where I was from. I told him where I was from. And then he asked me for my social security number. And I felt uncomfortable about offering my social security number. So I asked the officer, do I legally have to give you my social security number? Because I felt like, I'm a criminal here. And I was playing on private property. I figured it can't possibly be an issue playing on private property. So when he asked for my social security number, I said I felt uncomfortable and asked him, do I legally have to? And he said, well, it's not, this is not a criminal matter. And so he didn't say directly that I needed to or not. And I later learned that, that's something that I don't have to offer unless I'm doing something criminal. in terms of being difficult, I didn't feel I was being difficult. I just felt I was holding on to my rights. And the only resistance that I'm aware of was I didn't feel comfortable giving my social security number. I stopped immediately when you came. The people whose business I was playing on their property, they loved me playing there. I was helping to bring them more business. But please ask any more questions, because I didn't feel I was being difficult. I felt uncomfortable when you mentioned that, well, if you don't give me this information, then, you know, I'll notify town hall. I'm thinking like, wow. I said, this is my right to have this, to retain this information. I didn't feel like it was reasonable for you to kind of create that
Well, I
scenario.
think the town reserves the right to get the proper information to obtain a permit that you didn't have.
Right.
And that was the premise of my query.
Okay, yeah, and I said I was gonna, apply for a license right then and there, which I did. I think I did a day or two later, so I felt I was being very, very good.
I think that when an officer asks you for something, if anybody can be trusted in a community, it's our police department. And I think the nature of their inquiry was not obviously criminal, we knew that.
Right.
But in my opinion, you should have complied with the officer's request, and that could have alleviated a lot of problems.
Has, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go.
Through the
Sure,
chair,
sure.
has Mr. Sullivan passed his query? Okay.
My just question was, you said you were playing on private property for them and helping to bring in business.
Yeah.
Any business needs to have a permit to have music there. So they would need to,
Okay.
and that would have been, I would think, a problem too, if you were playing for them, that
Right.
they didn't call and have a permit to have you playing there.
Clearly, they didn't know either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I've played other places, and it hasn't been that neat. I've played a number of times in Newburyport and
Yeah.
some other locations, and it's never been an issue.
Yeah,
So I
but
just,
in Rockport,
I
you
played
need
in
a permit.
Quebec.
Yeah.
So if you're granted the permit today, where would be your plan to play moving forward, on private property or public property?
My hopes would be that I could play in the designated areas
The
that you
designated
have.
areas.
Plus, there's an area where Sea Bags, the ice cream shop is. I wrote it on the application. The name for this, it's an intersection of streets. And the business people there have loved me playing there. The ice cream place does, people, buy their ice cream and listen, and it's right in front of Sea Bags. Where is that? Let me get the,
By the pewter shop?
Yeah.
it might be, there's no,
Intersection of Bearskin Neck and Old Harbor.
okay, whatever I wrote on my application, I'm not finding it here.
Donovan's Corner, end of Bearskin Neck, and the island at Dock Square.
Yeah, Bearskin Neck and Old Harbor, that intersection. And actually, I was there tonight and spoke with one of the business owners who has Naughty Pearl. His name is John Dark. And so he said, oh, if you want to play here, you want to play in front of my store, I'd love to have you here.
Yeah, so then you would have to tell him that he would have to come to town hall and get a permit, which actually might be a smart idea. If a business owner wants to do that, might be a smart idea for them, right, Mitch?
Correct.
For them
Yeah.
to come and get
They
a
would need to-
permit and then,
They would need to do that, and it need to be the performer's license that comes.
right, which we've done before for like the Thursday nights, like
Right.
that thing.
That
where
would need
they-
to be, yes, as a special thing. That cannot be a
Right.
regular.
Right,
occurrence.
exactly, that would
Yeah.
be a special.
One of my questions would be, I know that Bearskin Neck is a very narrow road and the businesses are very close to that area. And it's been my assumption that, there has to be each building is sited on a plot of land. So I don't know where the private and public area is, because it seems like in most cases, or many cases, the asphalt goes right up to the front of the buildings. So,
Right,
That's-
well, that's why.
we have
With
designated
the street
areas.
performer license comes the designated areas
Mhm.
that have been vetted, work for town hall, the police know the designated areas. That's why beyond those designated areas, the business owners themselves have to get permits. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
yeah. Well, that area where the ice cream shop is and.
Yeah, so that hasn't been designated in the past.
Right. And it seemed like there's a lot of space there, so it wouldn't seem like I would interfere.
Right,
and-
but it's not designated.
But it's not
It's
what-
not
I understand.
designated, so regardless of the size of the
Yeah,
area,
it
it's
would have to
irrelevant.
be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just put that in there because in the application said, if there's other areas you'd like to play,
Yeah.
mention that, so that's what I
understand,
did.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important, we've discussed in the past that, as we discussed at our previous meetings, that a permit is a privilege, not a right.
Yep.
I would like to chalk up the first instance as, you know, misunderstanding. I understand, you know, I kind of see both sides, that while I would have liked you to just nicely give the officer your information, I do understand that there's certain information that by law you don't have to give. I would be willing to approve just the designated areas, but if there's one instance, then that's it for the permit with like total revocation. Is that the word?
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, and honestly, it would be, actually have to be if the police are okay with that, and Mitch. That's just my proposal. Not sure what.
I feel like we're past the saturation point on permits. We have permits that have been issued all throughout the year. We have permits that were renewed. We have, it's so late in the season now that I don't think we need to issue any more permits. I think we can revisit this next year and look at it and come in early, and then you can have the whole season. But right now, I would be inclined to oppose this.
Well, I think a lot of the people who got permits are school students. And so I think, you know, it actually will be the case that there will be fewer people. So I'm okay with your proposal, Sarah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, you know, just a basic level of respect. One of the reasons we have such a nice community is through the help of our police officers. So,
sure. I mean, I like I mentioned, I had played unknowingly that I needed a permit or license previously.
Understood.
And I got great response from business owners and the public. And
No,
so
yeah, well, I see the list of businesses that
Yeah.
signed that they wanted. You know.
And some people were emphatic about me not, because they knew that I was told I had to leave. And the day that you asked me to leave, there were people kind of that followed me and said, "What's going on? How come you have to leave?" So
I mean, I
think
see
I've
actually
added to the
businesses
community.
on here who need to be flagged for other permits that they need. So I think,
right, yeah.
but that's our issue, not yours.
Okay.
But I mean, but in all honesty, it's one of those things where I think if the police would have to speak to you again, that would be the end of the permit, and there would be no next season.
Quick question
in
for
my
you.
mind. Okay.
Quick question for you. Now, I don't feel like I created any negative situation. I just felt I was just being reasonable the whole time.
I responded to a call. I mean,
Right, I understand that.
For all the people that loved you, there was at least one caller that didn't
Right.
appreciate you being there, so.
No, I understand that.
And following up with my job, those are things we ask for people that don't have identifications on them, that are not in compliance with, you know, regulations that the town put out. And a normal question for me would be to ask, you know, your name, your date of birth, and a social security number to figure out who you are. And, you know, when you don't comply with those things, we tend to think that maybe there's more to the story, and you're maybe going out of your way to, you may not want to give me your private information, but
Right.
you're trying to hide something as well. So, from my standpoint, I see
Yeah.
your side of it.
Yeah,
You know, I think that day I just was asking you to see mine.
sure.
In the performance of my duty. You know,
Right. I mean, obviously, if that's your mandate, you have to follow your mandate.
I'm doing
And I'm just, you know, protecting
with
myself.
The town and the selectmen and the
Yep.
town administrator, my police chief, that's what I do.
Okay,
I respond to calls and
Yep.
I ask questions, not always popular ones, so
sure.
that's.
I think one thing we need to look at, though, are coming up with a better protocol for this, and setting parameters, deadlines, caps, limits, locations.
Well,
and-
don't you think
and
we've
do
done
it.
that?
Well, no, I think we need to tighten it up, because I don't think we have any limits on anything right now. I haven't seen anything. Are there any limits on anything right now, Mitch, as we speak?
On the number of permits? No.
Yes, okay.
No.
So I think that's something that we should look at. It's one of those things that adds or possibly could detract from the ambiance of the town. And I think it's something we should take very seriously, and we should use it as an asset. And I think, you know, when folks come into town and want to enhance that, then that's a great thing. But I think it should always be done in that vein.
Yeah. I agree with that, Don. I mean, I think we need to look this winter at tightening that up and looking at what kind of performers we have and how many we have of each. I think it's wonderful that we, you know, no offense to you because you're not from around here, but the young kids in the area out juggling and their musical instruments and things like that. It's very positive for them in the town. And there are other people too. But I think it does, if I'm new to the board, I didn't realize there was a sort of a renewal process and the new ones, and it's a big list. So we really need to start looking at it and making sure it doesn't get too lengthy.
Yeah. One thing that has helped significantly is adding the stipulation of one weekend day
Right.
and one weekday, not consecutive. That's helped to kind of
Yeah.
spread, because I
Yeah.
think when it first started, we had people who wanted to be out 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And if that were the case, we certainly couldn't. But that seems to have, and it also seems to have created something that is a hobby and not a job for people, which is the point. The point
Right.
is to enhance, as you said, the ambiance of downtown.
I mean, I agree with giving you a chance to finish out this season, start the season, and then end it when we end it for the year. And hopefully that you'll work well with the police. If they ask you some questions, you've got to work in the parameters of the 3 places that you can perform.
Okay.
You can't be performing privately for people unless they come to us for a permit, which they won't be this year, so you do your certain places.
Okay.
And I think that will show if it's renewed next
Yeah.
year. I think this is a good short season trial of it, since there's been an initial problem.
Great. Would you like to?
I
oh,
can
sorry.
just mention that my experience on that Bearskin Neck is that I haven't seen that many musicians or performers.
I haven't heard
Yeah.
any complaints of too many
Yeah.
performers.
So I see, actually, when I've gone, when I've come here, it's kind of like, wow, I'm surprised there aren't people here.
Yeah.
Anything else?
You've got the motion.
Oh, I have the
Is
motion.
there a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve a street performer license for Paul Sullivan for the remainder of the 2019 season for the designated areas only.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
And the motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Okay. Selectmen briefings, the planning board.
Looks like
Ready to go?
the planning board is one person.
Jason.
Okay. For the recording, I'll say my name is Jason Shaw. I am as of June 20, I am the chairman of the planning board. With me here is Tom Meekus, who's recently elected to the board. And I think we have a new board in a good way. We're one of the things I wanted to do as part of this process is to, just update you as the Board of Selectmen on just what we're doing. Not because, there's any need to report or anything like that. It's not that. It's more like, a spirit of cooperation, letting you know what we're doing, maybe getting some of your feedback, because, you are all elected officials, as are we, getting your feedback on some of the things we're doing, and also, in this case, asking for your help. So just a couple of things we're doing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, is one of the first things we did is I drafted and the board adopted a new set of essentially rules of conduct for the planning board, because I thought that some of the meetings of the planning board were really getting out of hand, and I think anybody who's visited the planning board in the past could sometimes see that for themselves. So I drafted some rules of conduct with the help of the other board members, and we're going to keep to those rules for everybody, for applicants, for members of the audience, for lawyers, for everybody. I mean, and every meeting, we hand them out with the agenda. They're on the website. And that's the other thing we've done is, with Tom's help, we're now updating our portion of the website. So there are current things on there, not things that have been there for 2 years and no one's paying any attention to. We try to put everything on the website that's current. So that's number one. Number two is, in addition to the regular business of, the site plan review and subdivision and subdivision not required. We're also working on this transportation-oriented development, which some of you may be familiar with. It started before I got on the board, but the town received several grants from the state to develop a kind of very loosely a plan around transportation-oriented development, and everyone may have heard about that. That's development that would be revolve around essentially a public transportation center, which in this case would be the train station area. And there was a lot of talk and a lot of pretty pictures and all that, a few years ago. But now we're really getting down to the, really what's the nitty-gritty. And the good news and the bad news is that the good news is that we are getting to the nitty-gritty. The bad news is that the area of the transportation-oriented development has really kind of shrunk from what it was in the original depictions, because it's really now going to essentially be the area of most of the property, 90% of the property is owned by the Smith Family Trust. So that, that may raise some issues, but anyway, we're looking at housing for that area. I mean, that's predominantly have a zoning overlay where it's kind of, it's minimal retail right now, big parking area. This is where the Cracker Jack is and the stores there. But actually zoning it with a zoning overlay so that that could be used for the construction of, residential housing and also commercial space on the first floor. So kind of a mixed use type of housing. The idea is, and this is always, the wish, and what really happens is that this would be a, what is called affordable housing. And whether that means affordable in the legal definition, the statutory definition, or affordable, just less cost to people than what a lot of things cost around here. We haven't really worked that out yet, but to make it so people can find housing to live in that's affordable for the most people, that's going to be a process to do that, I think. But we're working on it, and it's we're looking now. It was going to be at the this town meeting, which is obviously it isn't, in September. So this is going to be rolled over to the spring town meeting. But before that happens, there'll be public hearings. We'll get input, including input from you folks about this, and whether it's something that's realistic. I mean, obviously, to do a zoning change like this, you need the community behind it. You can't just do it. People have to be in favor of it and see that. So that's number two. Number three, and this is more recent, is that Herm Lilja, who was the chairman, has come to the board with something I've never heard about before, but it was that the commercial property owners in Bearskin Neck are concerned that commercial properties are now being converted to residential properties on Bearskin Neck, which this is something new. Right now, this is just Herm talking. I've asked him to get people who may know this directly and why this is happening. What first came to mind is, well, maybe they can't find enough commercial tenants, so they go to residential. I mean, this may be just a thing of the market forces are operating this way, and what are you going to do about it? But anyway, that's something that we're working on now. We're looking at very preliminarily. We'll see what happens with that as we go along. And the last thing, and this is the area where I'm going to need your help, and Mitch and I have been talking about this because I promised him I'd bother him about this before every planning board meetings, and I've succeeded with that promise. So, and he knows 3 days before the meeting when I call, why I'm calling. Right. So he hasn't stopped taking my calls yet, but
he's been pretty good. So we need a planner really badly. And, you know, losing Kirk Baker as the planner was a real blow to the planning board because he was there during, at least one day during the week. He could direct applicants on some technical issues about their applications before they would submit them to the board. He would do the public notices. I mean, he did a lot. And he's been gone now for months and months. So it's been very difficult to function without him. I have been in contact with him. He now is a full-time planner in Rowley, and he has offered to help on various kind of piecemeal things that he can do. But in terms of somebody of his ability who's here on a regular basis, part-time, because we don't need a full-time planner. We don't have enough business. But part-time has been tough. So what Mitch has been doing is reaching out to a couple of adjoining communities to see whether they can, they have a planner who maybe, 10, 15 hours a week can work for Rockport. At this point, I'm to the point where if they don't want to attend our meeting, that's fine. Mm-hmm. It's just to give us a written report or something so we can use it at the meeting. Right. If they don't want to come here for a night meeting, I understand that could be a burden, especially if they're from an adjoining community. But very, very difficult in this economy to find someone who's a planner who wants to work, 10 to 15 hours a week for part-time, no benefits or anything. It's basically impossible to find someone like that. So the alternative we have right now is a cost sharing thing where you'll have a contract with the other community and we can use their planner. That's a really important thing for us to have. So if there aren't any other questions, that's kind of the report. Mitch, do you have
board questions?
Let me turn this off.
Yeah, I had questions, but do you want to comment on the last item? Or?
Sure, it may
Yeah.
fill some information. So we had multiple discussions with usually our first stop, which is Gloucester.
Yeah.
And we were pretty hopeful, and then it came back as a no. I did bounce it back as a, does it help if we don't do night meetings? Not ideal, but something,
Right.
a body.
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, I'll see, but probably not.
Yeah.
So I did reach out to the other communities in the region, the handful that are around us, and two are interested in talking and want more info. So I'm going to talk to them next week, see what we can find.
Yeah.
It's prior to Mr. Shaw stepping into that role, the previous chair we put, we put some ads out. He put several in trade publications. 0.
Have you reached out to the MMA to see if they can help? Because I'm sure we're not the only small community dealing with this.
So the MMA would only have the job postings.
Yeah.
I know I had sent the info to MAPC in my batch of things prior to Mr. Shaw coming in, and there was still no response back on that.
I mean, I wonder if we can use somebody from another part of the state as a virtual assistant.
Let's see what we get in this next week, and if no, then I think at this point
Yeah.
you're probably ready to take anybody who has the qualification.
I mean, we could do that if we have to.
Between here and Boston.
The only problem is that what's good about having someone here at least for one day, part of one day a week, is that they can meet with applicants and go over the applications face to face and tell people what to do in terms of their applications. I think that was a big role that Kirk played, and it made the application process go more smoothly. But we're really hindered because we don't have one now, and haven't had one for like at least half a year or more.
Yeah.
And we did raise the rate in the last budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
pretty
a lot.
significantly. We jumped from 27 to 35,000.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the money's there.
Yeah.
It's just finding someone for part-time,
Right.
you know, part-time work.
Same with the,
Jason, I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead.
So just based upon the part-time parameters that we have, what scope are you looking for that planner to take on? What functionality?
Whatever they want. at
Well,
this
I
point.
mean,
No,
it's
I'm not-
on a very
I'm not trying
limited
to be
basis,
flip,
so I would
but,
imagine
yeah.
what they do would be in a limited capacity.
Yeah, it would
So you want
be-
to make the most of their time.
Yeah, well, it would be coming one, kind of like what Kirk did, one day a week for maybe a morning to appear to be at the planning board. Maybe people come in, maybe they don't, but just to be there, to answer questions, to look at applications, to write a preliminary report to the planning board, to let them know what their views are. This is typical for a bigger community which actually has a staff. They'll do a report to the board, say, here's this, here's that, these are the recommendations, these are the deficiencies or whatever, and they report to the board. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. And the other thing would be to do the public notices, because that's just kind of a, you know, pain in the neck to do that and make sure they get done and published and all that. And that's something that Kirk used to do also. Attendance at the meeting, I don't think is all that critical, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but you know, because I do have legal training, I think that I'm able to kind of deal with these things better than some people who might not be able to deal with them. So this is it's a really easy job, and right now it would be a really easy job because right now we only have, I think, one subdivision, a very contentious subdivision on Drumlin Road that is going to come back to the planning board sometime in the near future. You know, you got 4 lawyers involved, so you can imagine, for a one-lot subdivision. But that's something, in fact, I have talked with Kirk about becoming involved just on a one-time basis with this thing. So does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I was just looking for the scope of what we were trying to do for 10 hours a week, so.
Yeah, 10 to 15 hours a week. It would be great for someone who already has another job or, you know, is retired or something, someone who's in an unusual situation. It will not work for somebody who obviously needs a full-time job.
I have a question, and is there any chance we could reach out to one of the colleges, some senior who, or a graduate student looking for something, a graduate student in town planning or town government looking for something like that, and see if there's anything in a track like that where they could, you know, I mean, I think it would be worth
I know.
looking
I was
at
thinking
maybe.
I'm trying to remember
Suffolk.
what.
Suffolk,
I was wondering at Suffolk as
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what. I know that your predecessor, Mr. Shaw, did reach out to a handful, I think, but I don't remember which ones he reached out to. I don't believe Suffolk was on the list. But,
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get a lot of, we didn't get a lot of information from Herm about what he was doing, so it was hard
Maybe
to
a
know.
graduate student
it's
who's,
certainly an additional option at this point.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's
We'll-
willing to,
we'll do
someone's
that.
willing to work part-time, that's the key.
right.
They need to.
And they need the experience. They need
Right,
the-
they need the experience so they could work 2 part-time jobs and maybe make it into a full-time job. Yeah, one of the things we did advertise on that I had some hope was the Massachusetts Planners Association website, which has a specific, I mean, talk about targeted. This had a specific job board for planners looking for work. So it was, if you want to hit the people who might be looking, this was the place to advertise. And I think we did that. I wasn't involved, but we did it. Yeah, twice and 0.
Yeah.
You know, part of the fact, Ruth, is, you know, you've got a very low unemployment rate,
Yeah.
and people
We're out in
aren't
the
that
boonies.
hungry now, you know, and
Beginning.
everybody, I talked to people at planners at MAPC, I talked to people in private industry, anybody whose ear I can bend
Yeah.
about this, I'll bend it, you know, just
Yeah.
in the hopes, oh yeah, I know somebody
Yeah.
who, so that's where we are. We'll let you know in a month
Great.
Okay,
where
yeah.
we're gonna be.
Thank you.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
Denise?
m-
that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a comment I was going to bring up in the context of the lots of land that we're putting up for sale, but it's relevant as well to this transit-oriented development, which I think theoretically is a good idea. I think it's going to be affordable because anybody who's willing to live next to the train station and can afford to live elsewhere will move, because they're going to have the engine right in their ears all the time. But the question I have is, we never heard back from the DPW about the results of the wastewater treatment plan assessment. We don't know what our wastewater treatment capacity is. We, as a board, made a commitment to the town in response to concerns raised by concerned citizens about the capacity of our wastewater treatment plant, and said that we would meet with the planning board and the DPW commissioners to kind of get a broader sense of what our capacity is.
Denise,
and
I think that Mitch just literally got something from the DPW like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yep, the client reads.
Update, like their own
Kleinfelder.
updated version of that document
Okay.
that we wanted to pay to have updated.
Kleinfelders.
The Kleinfelder report.
Right.
Right.
I
Yep.
think he just.
Okay.
We did just get it, and we're trying to figure out how we can get everybody at the table now that we're.
Okay. Well,
That's good.
the question that I have is, we have the Harbor Lights development going in, and the addition of all of that. We're selling these lots, theoretically, that are, the purpose of that is to sell the lots so we can put more houses there. Until we know what our treatment capacity is, I'm not in favor of adding anything to the system, because we don't know that we can handle it. So the biggest question I would have about this transit-oriented development is, can we handle it? And it's a question for wastewater treatment. It's also a question for our infrastructure.
Right.
So we have a lot of updates and work that we need to do to existing infrastructure with the population we have, that I'm concerned about adding lots of units when we can't deal with what we have.
Well, Denise, that raises a good point, and, you know, that will be one of the issues with this transit-oriented development, is that how are you gonna get rid of the wastewater?
Right.
And what's the capacity? All that has to be answered.
Right.
And,
Right.
and any community where you've got a development of possibly 40 additional residential units, you've got to know what your
Yeah.
sewer capacity is.
Well, we have Harbor Lights going in, and we still don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, we have a better idea, I guess, but.
I don't know that they did, but I do believe they've got some type of pre-treatment. Leslie, are you familiar with that at all, the Harbor Lights 5 granite? I believe there's some type of pre-treatment on site to help address the bigger issue. That's not by any
Right.
means a problem-solving thing, but it's a small mitigation
Yep.
effect.
Yep.
By the way, I was, and I have been, appointed by the planning board a while ago as the liaison with, there was going to be this group,
Right.
DPW, and I don't know who else was going to
Us.
be.
Yeah.
You selectmen, we're all going to kind of work on this.
Right.
And that's as far as it ever went, and that
Yeah.
was a year ago.
Yeah,
So
so
Right.
we'll be working on
Agreed.
it soon.
it's very important, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Nice to see you.
All right, thank you. Let's go to item G, the town meeting walkthrough, but we do not have our town
The
moderator.
moderator is not here. I would ask Mr. Chair that you proceed forward, and hopefully we see him shortly, and we can
Go
come
back
back
to
to
that?
it.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. How about the consent agenda?
I move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Nope.
Hey,
Give it to
hey,
Sarah.
hey,
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All good.
all good. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
This is exciting.
This is our first time.
This is the first time
Way to
taking
go.
half the
We
list
can
out.
do it.
It's bangs it right out.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. And the motion passes 5-0. Very good.
Great.
Selectmen and town administrators update and liaison reports. Mitch, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I know everybody is aware, but I'll say it just to make sure it's really out there. Tomorrow evening, Building Study Committee is hosting a tour from 6 to 7, and then 7 p.m. at the police station discussion. Weston and Sampson will be present. There is significant information on the town website. Under the town meeting tab, there's additional information on the DPW webpage for the DPW facility. Quite a bit of effort and work has gone in with the Building Study Committee on that, and the Friends Group has been getting started. So tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. This is the time for folks who have significant questions. Monica has been a warrior in answering almost one by one Facebook questions, which is a very brave thing. But she's been doing that to make sure the information is out there. Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, tours, and then 7 o'clock, the chance to ask those questions.
Is that information being communicated out to the Gloucester Daily Times?
It has. There was a very nice letter from the Building Study Committee
Saw that.
Very
in
nice
the Times
Are they
today.
going to do a regular news story, or I haven't heard that?
I know he knows about it.
I did not, release.
Mhm. Okay.
Just word of, if you do issue a press release, I would just do a word for word, like this is what I would release. Do you know what I mean? Like this is what you can print, or they have to ask your permission to
Right.
change it.
Right.
Because the reporter, when he was asking us questions at first, and I was confused.
Okay. Good.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
Just,
please.
like kudos to Monica for like
Yep,
fighting the
absolutely.
good fight on Rockport stuff. I did find it interesting, right? We'll just use that word, that like there were hundreds of comments about it, and then Monica's like, I hope you'll all join us on the 28th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's like crickets.
Silence.
Right?
Yeah.
Total silence. Unfortunately, I can't go because tomorrow's the first day of school, so we have stuff tomorrow night. But
I'll be there.
I hope there's a turnout. Someone actually, this is probably a suggestion for the Friends group, but someone made a suggestion to me that I think could be interesting. Maybe you can pass it along. That it might make sense for a Friends group person to go to like the farmer's market with the information. Something where people are like on a Saturday, you know, kind of more casually, but more willing to ask questions and able to have like specific questions answered. Because that's something if you put on Facebook, you know, hey, there's going to be somebody at the farmer's market if people have questions, and people were down
a little
there.
table down there. Yeah,
That
What
might
about
be worth it.
what about the transfer station?
I think they're.
Yeah, I think they are
Yeah.
planning to
Yeah.
do that.
I'm sure they're there.
The farmer's market is a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
yes.
by the way, one reason I didn't do a news story is because I didn't want it butchered. And by doing a letter to the editor, you control the message.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But nice, I mean, great effort, honestly.
Once again.
Yep. Mitch, is there any way we can put something at Five Corners that, on a little stanchion about the meeting tomorrow night?
Well, I'm a little concerned, I guess I put it on Rockport stuff twice, and it was in the letter to the editor, and it's posted as a meeting. I was at the police station to check the room setup, and it's set for 40 chairs, and it's full, and we can maybe squeeze 10 more in there, and that's not a lot. So I'm kind of concerned that,
Okay.
I don't know what to expect. It could be crickets, it could be 100 people.
Yeah. Okay.
You can always adjust if it's 100 people.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
That's never a problem. Standing room only
Yep.
is like best case scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
What was the meeting that? Granite Pier. Oh, Pigeon. Yeah. I remember that one.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Mitch?
I'll defer on most of my items or report items.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Liaison reports.
I've got a few.
Selectman Campbell.
Thank you. Well, I can forego the planning board stuff because we had Jason here and he kind of updated everybody on that. The one concern I had or question I had, he answered. It's still preliminary, is about Bearskin Neck and the potential, looking at the area for zoning changes as far as business and residential and what's going on. I found that interesting at the last meeting. But we'll wait to see what happens with that. This morning, myself, Sarah, and Mitch were at the school opening, which was great. Rob Lebo always does a tremendous job with that. He does a PowerPoint that like no other, and brings stuff in from Cranberry Island and his time up in Maine over the summer, and really gets everybody motivated to get started off the school year.
Makes me
Yeah, it really, it really is an emotional thing. I mean, you think, oh, we're opening school, okay, but not the way Rob does it. It's completely different. So I thought that was fantastic.
Great guy.
On this Thursday, there will be a reception for officers Padone and Waldsmith who graduated the academy and will become official full-time officers. That will be from 3 to 5, correct, at the station? I wish they'd do that a little later, so, in the evening, but that's okay. So that'll be at the station.
That Thursday.
That's
Thursday.
Thursday from 3 to 5, correct? Let's see, I was working with Sal Zarelli and Jim Ugone, and and they were working together with Tony Beadle, and they have gotten permission and have started and secured an artist for behind the library, behind on Stone Barn Lane, which I think is great. And I know Sal very well, and that's one of those projects that, yeah, and as you do, and it's one of those things. The street art, I guess you would call it, but it's not graffiti. It's specific to Rockport. It's appropriate for what they'll be doing, and I think that's going to enhance, just a big wall, and it's in a spot that's not so conspicuous. So if it works, then maybe it gets expanded to other things. But I think it's going to be very, very tastefully done, and he went through all the proper channels, so I think that was great. Let's see, what else do I have? I have one more thing. So after. Last time we were with Bruce, I talked to him. It was at the Millbrook Meadow grand opening, which was another one. That was a great event to be at, to see what they did down there.
Right.
Yeah, that was really nice. And I talked to Bruce after that. And one thing that I've been wanting to do, when I brought it up to the board a while ago, and I'm really going to kind of kick it into full gear here as I move forward, is looking at the potential for a sidewalk on Nugent Stretch. And seeing if we can do something to enhance safety. There's been quite a few unfortunate incidents, thank God one of them has happened recently on Nugent Stretch, but others around town, and I think we could make it much safer. I see people down there, as I'm sure most do, walking all the time, at night, dark clothes, things like that. And Peter...
The one on Thatcher Road used to end around... I think it was Marmion Way, and then they extended it all the way to Seaview. That was Bruce Tarr was big on.
Well,
that.
from what I understand, years ago, I think we had the option of bringing that sidewalk from the Gloucester line into Rockport. And I don't know the circumstances. I won't speak to it. It's just speculation. But I believe that we had that option. And for whatever reason at the time, whether it was money or logistics or whatever, it wasn't done. But I think now might be a good time to do that. And I think not only will it increase safety, but it'll provide better. One thing that Peter Beecham, God rest his soul, was trying to do was bring the trail system into play with this whole thing. Yeah. And I think it'll work out well, because when you have families walking down there, bikes coming down there, what have you, it just creates a nice circuit of opportunity to walk around and to enjoy the woods, to get there safely, and to be able to do these things. So
as connected to the Gloucester, because Gloucester,
it's already there.
It's right there.
It's actually 3/4 of a mile from the Gloucester end of the sidewalk up to the beginning of the hill.
But that's state road.
That's a state road.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's important, because I think there have been people in town who have been
No.
begging for sidewalks
Right.
on
State road
town
begins
roads. So
there.
it's a state.
No, this is a state venture, and I'm very new into this to try to work on this, but I will obviously keep everybody posted as to the progress and as approvals and dollar figures, if any, get discussed, then I'll bring that along too. So that's good. And then the last part is the most exciting part, which I'll get to right now.
This is what everyone comes for.
Selectman Campbell signed payroll warrant number 6 totaling $145,494.98, and expense warrant number 6 totaling $216,638.70 on August 6, 2019. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 7 totaling $205,510.89, and expense warrant number 7 totaling $235,627.08 on August 13, 2019. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 8 totaling $124,325.37, and expense warrant number 8 totaling $241,252.17 on August 20th, 2019. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 9 totaling $531,569.73, and expense warrant number 9 totaling $975,260. Let me try that again. $975,260.39 on August 27, 2019. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay, let's continue on. Why don't we do, if anyone has any objection, board stances on town meeting articles?
Do you mind? Because then I have to run out.
She's got a bowl.
Sure. Yep.
We can do this without Bob, of course, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, I've got up on the screen the
want me to
Essentially be pulled back a little bit, okay.
pull it back?
Pull it back and turn it just a bit, please.
So this is my internal tracking worksheet, just to show you what, where some folks are on it now. So I've done a preliminary division of assignments for the board to consider for the articles. They're as close as I could get on them. So I'll just quickly scroll down on those if there's any objections.
Good.
Great. So does Mitch have recommendations for us?
So I do. So the
That's perfect, yeah.
the facility's already been voted on. The board has already voted to recommend that, so that's already there. The prior year bills, I jinxed myself at Finance Committee last night and said we had none, and then that we'd get a ton today, and we got 4 today. So I'm recommending that the board.
Nothing's ever easy, is it, Mitch?
I'm not sure why I said anything after all this time. I should know better. Recommending that you recommend approval for that article. Article B, the transfers. So these are the current. This is the current list of FY20 internal transfers.
Why are we transferring money out of the contributory return, or is that budget allocated that we
It is.
didn't need?
It is budget allocated,
Okay.
and if we're able to pay early, we get a discount.
Okay.
So this is discount money.
Okay.
Yeah, that question came up last night as well. Yes, the name
Okay.
is deceiving.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not employee contributions.
Okay,
The just quickly the transfers, 1872 to library supplies. There's an additional need there. $5,913 to library technology services. As the board is aware, through the capital process, they're in the midst of a transition in their entire network and phone system, et cetera. So there's a need for a little bit more of a boost on the funding to finish things out there. $5,000 to public properties purchase of services. So this covers a retrofit of our water fountains that are our internal water fountains. So the one upstairs and the 2 that are at T Wharf, with units that maintain the fountain and have a water bottle refiller on them. So the schools have had them for a number of years.
Yeah.
And they work very well. They track how many bottles are filled.
Yeah.
They track how many bottles you've saved. So looking to do this transfer and to get those installed. It's something that
Awesome.
can be done
Yeah.
internally with our. We have a plumber on staff, so that would address that. And
just that's in anticipation of the plastic water bottle ban, that we wanted to have that in place so that people would have somewhere to go
It's awesome.
to get their water bottles filled.
Yep.
That's great.
HR operating expense 2750. As the board is aware, we continue to have myriad personnel matters that are coming up, and that has necessitated the hiring of some outside services. And I have another thing that actually came in today that I'm going to need to hire somebody out for that. So we're looking to put a little bit more in that account. Hopefully, I'm expecting in next year's budget, we're going to just seek to raise that budget. We have to keep doing more transfers every year. Library buildings and grounds, additional funds are needed for that, $1,200. $2,800 to IS&T comm services. An additional mobile radio for a vehicle is needed. And I think it's 26 and change is the actual cost of the radio, and then if there's an antenna that's needed, et cetera. So we do need one of those outfitted in a vehicle. And then $3,500 to the animal control officer stipend. The animal control officer position is now vacant. And the director of emergency services has reviewed some information that's needed there, and to get somebody for that position and to take that position seriously, we need to give a bit of a bump to the stipend for that. The current stipend is $9,500. So I'm seeking that the board would recommend those. And the man himself has just arrived. There we go. Moving along to Articles C, D, and E are CPC projects. So the board has those. I will make a note that on the first project, the granite bench for Millbrook, Finance Committee last night did not recommend that. There was a discussion on the fact that it is not Cape Ann granite, and that it's I don't want to butcher it. That it's not Cape Ann granite, I think, was the significant issue, if I recall correctly. So the Finance Committee opted to not recommend the first, but to recommend 2 through 6, projects 2 through 6.
Can I ask a question about that one?
Sure.
In the CPC process, maybe this is a question for Ruth. Did that come up?
Oh, yeah, it came up at all the meetings.
Okay.
It was mentioned. Toby mentioned it at a bunch of meetings. It came up a lot, and it was.
What's the problem with making it Cape Ann granite? Is there?
I don't know but they didn't want to, so, and they just kept pushing for it, so.
We still have plenty of rocks kicking around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue,
Okay.
please.
So the next two are the collective bargaining agreement funding. So ask that you recommend those, but we'll come back to those. The topic will come up in executive session for that. DPW facility, we've already taken a stance on permission to sell the land, seeking that you recommend that. So this was a discussion last night at FinCom. So this article just authorizes the board to go through the process and to evaluate what its options are, to get an appraisal, and then the board makes a determination on what it wishes to do with the property, anything, everything, or nothing. You could opt to say you want to do affordable housing. You could opt to say you don't want to do anything with it. You could opt to say, conservation route. All of that is available to you. This simply allows the process to start for that. To an earlier point on the sewer use, there are 2 lots that have sewer, 2 lots that don't. The 2 Woodbury Lane ones are, we would most likely need to consider perking those lots. There's not sewer to that point. The health
Right,
agent and I had a discussion.
It only goes to the Old Farm Inn, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's not going to perk, I can tell you right now.
yeah, so that's certainly part of the discussion.
Yeah.
You know, if the board opts to move on those. So again, this is not saying it shall be sold or it shall go for a purpose. There was a bit of confusion on that last night. So the COA revolving account increase with the transition of the recreation department, moving the exercise classes over from recreation to where they belong in Council on Aging.
Mm-hmm.
There's double the number of classes. We've got more money moving through that. So this would raise the revolving fund cap to $60,000 from $30,000. Those classes are packed every day, every day. The next ones, K, L, and M, are K is a disposable food service wear ban, L is a balloon ban, and M is a plastic water bottle ban. Government and bylaw recommended favorably on these. The health agent and I had a conversation this afternoon about L, the balloon ban, and Selectman Donnelly and I had a conversation, very brief one this evening, about that. And I believe, Leslie, that you've had some feedback from the Board of Health as well, with some concerns, some of the members of the Board of Health on that one. Government and bylaw had some concerns as well with the intent is there. There was concern raised about, and some of the public feedback on having it be a total ban. The question was posed to some of the individuals who were present to make the presentation on it. Does this ban everything? If you come in with a single balloon for a child's birthday party, is that considered against this bylaw? And the answer was yes.
Like in your house. So you
Correct.
couldn't have balloons in your house.
Correct.
Well, I think, I mean, I think the
Not that
problem is
anybody's going to
they
police
don't
that.
stay in the house.
But
It's
that was the
problem.
part of the issue, I think, is the way is written
Yeah.
on that one. And
Well, I'm surprised that the government bylaw recommended it when you said they had a lot of edits.
they recommended it because they went with the intent of it, but they had, every page had a lot of markups for all 3 of them. Particularly, they were concerned on the balloon ban. The chair made multiple remarks about the balloon ban, and that, well, okay. I actually think the chair voted against it. So there was concern raised at that meeting, and that's been the one that there seems to be quite a bit of feedback on. Two members of the Board of Health presented some concerns to Leslie on that topic. So I would suggest that the board may want to consider holding Article L until the spring to clarify any floating issues that may
So
come
to
up with that.
speak.
So to speak, thank you, there you go. Like a trial balloon,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And is
Warming
the,
up, Bob?
I think Bob's gonna have fun with that
he's got a
one.
lot to say on a bunch of
Well,
this.
the other thing is if if we are supporting the other two, you wouldn't want the other two
To
Right.
fail
to
'cause of
fail
that.
Mhm.
ever,
Yeah, that's
over
how I
like
feel.
some
No,
small
I'm-
questions on
Yeah,
balloons.
reluctantly agree.
Yeah.
I'd
It's
like
too
to get
bad,
two
but
passed.
Article N is the Historical Commission, the adjustment in their membership to 5 full members and 2 alternates. So the alternates would be able to step in, they'd function similar to the ZBA, they'd step in for, to make quorum, for conflicts, etc. O is transfer of borrowed funds, so there will be no motion for that one. We took a further look at a few things, actually, even this morning. There was some confusion last night at FinCom about it. There will be no motion on that one. And P is the removal from civil service. So we'd ask that you recommend that. That's something that we've been working on for a long
Yeah.
time with
More than a
the
couple
police
I think
unions.
there's a need to educate
What
town
that means.
people what that means.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
It is not a bad thing. The police union is for it, and will certainly be saying that at the appropriate time at the meeting. It's better for all of us. So I know the chief has touched on some of this in different forms in the past. The civil service process is very broken, particularly for a place like us. We're a smaller organization, and we're bound so tightly by that. So, for example, when we need to hire some additional officers, so the board appointed 2 permanent intermittent officers maybe a month or so ago, I think. The original call for the list started with several hundred people on that list who were eligible. Then it came down to you have to sign an actual card that says you're interested. That dropped the number down to less than 100, way less than 100 actually. I believe 15 or 17 were interviewed, and 2 came before you. The background check is extensive, which is critical for us to make sure that we solve a problem up front. And it's really hindering us. We're not able to take, without a lateral transfer from another civil service community, if somebody has experience in another municipality that's not civil service, we're not able to consider that applicant at this point. It's not a lateral transfer from another civil service agency. The other pluses as well are on the promotion end. It frees us up to, and we have determined a promotion policy that's appropriate for Rockport. That involves written assessments, or oral board training, oral board assessment, etc. That's much better than simply what score you get on your exam. So the exams that the civil service gives is just like the high school test that you get. They look for the random things to catch you on. So they may put as a test question the footnote on page 750 of Iannone and Iannone 9th edition on police supervision. And you have to know that kind of stuff. It's rote basic things. It's not holistic on you as an individual, your professional capabilities, etc. So that's the really quick version for those watching at home on the value of stepping out of civil service. And as I said, the town has reached the agreement with the police officers to do that, and they are in support of it. The individuals who are currently employed maintain their civil service protections, so it applies to new
To the
hires.
grandfather.
They are
Okay,
grandfathered.
good.
I think part of this, the perception is that the town is being viewed as the bad guy, and that we're trying to usurp the, any unions and things like that, well, that's not the intent of this at all. I've had extensive conversations with the chief and the assistant chief about this, and I mean, I'm sold on this because it's going to enhance our department. It's going to create more opportunity and a better pool of candidates. So I think this is, as long as we can convey that, it's in the messaging, and hopefully town meeting will be enough to convey that. And perhaps, maybe
sure
even
will.
before then. So.
Okay, anything else, Mitch?
No, Mr. Chair. So I would ask that, so a couple of motions for the board. Excuse me. I'd ask that the board, actually, a question first. So Article E, do you want to do anything on Project 1 for the granite bench, like Finance Committee did? Do you wish to take any different action there, or is the board looking to approve all of them?
I think they should use Rockport granite.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, are we missing something here? It's simply a matter of using Rockport granite, right?
It doesn't-
Okay, so
it doesn't
predicated on
seem
that.
like,
I mean,
right, unless we're missing something, it doesn't
I mean,
seem
we
like
just made a
rocket
whale
science.
out of Rockport granite. We should have enough for a bench.
Make a
I got a
bench.
couple of rocks in my backyard.
Yeah,
we could
like-
probably bang one out from. I
It'll
mean,
be-
it
what were you
doesn't
gonna
seem
say?
that difficult.
Indeed, you're missing several things. I read the application. The proposed bench is to match the boulders. That's pretentious for the posts on the mill dam, which are fieldstone lumps like so, with granite facing on top, smooth but not polished, about 2 inches thick. It's not Rockport granite. That's not the objection to it. And the whole thing could come anywhere, any country club, or office park. There is Rockport granite up at the DPW's holding yard by the Carlson Quarry Pump House. Numbers of large blocks could be arranged in an arc if that's what they want, and that's all Rockport granite. I mean, it would look fine, but in fact, any stone bench is not comfortable.
Okay, well, I
It
think
doesn't-
Toby's getting,
Yeah,
Toby's
no,
getting
we
out
got
of
your
it.
point. Thank you,
It
though.
doesn't have a back, and the Millbrook Meadow Consistency got from the Institution of Savings a grant for 6 park benches. So if they
This is
get
off
that
topic.
Okay,
on
We're
their
off
yeah,
topic
okay, now we're off topic. Let's get back to this.
I think our only point would be the portion of it that's granite should be Rockport granite.
Yeah,
If
I
if
agree.
part of it is fieldstone to
Yeah,
match, I
right,
understand that
yeah.
part doesn't need to, but shouldn't the granite part be Rockport granite? That just
So-
doesn't seem like.
How would you like to recommend it and just make that statement at the meeting, or would the board like to?
Can we
not
recommend with
so.
stipulation?
Yeah, I think we should say it at the meeting, that we would,
Okay.
we support it, that it should be Rockport, any
su-
part that's
Okay.
granite should
We
be
support
Rockport
it if
granite.
it's Rockport granite.
If it's Rockport granite.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
good with that.
then I would say a proper motion would be to move to support Article E, Project 1, with the stipulation that it be Rockport granite.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we got that.
The next,
Did you, oh, Bob, I'm sorry.
Well, I did a granite project not that long ago, and I don't, if the town pays what consumers pay, but Rockport granite was double non-Rockport granite, so it may affect the grant amount.
Well, then they
Well,
can
they're
come
not,
back.
they're not, they can, they, this is the amount they got approved for, so they're not getting approved for any more. This, for this time. Either gets passed or doesn't. They can't change it now.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
recommend that the board recommend approval on Articles A, B, C, D, and E 2 through 6.
Okay. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good.
F and G will come back to the board, would most likely make their stance on the floor for that, because we have an executive session after this meeting. H you've already acted on. Recommend that the board recommend approval for I, J, and K.
I am not in favor of I. I think it's premature. I just don't think we're ready. Until we have answers to the questions relating to wastewater treatment capacity, I can't support this. And I understand that it's simply permission to sell, but I think even that is premature.
Okay.
I think having the ability to do it doesn't, and we don't have to move forward, because even if we did sell it, obviously it has to come for final approval to this board, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if that's the
Every-
case, then
anything that happens is
Of
in
course,
our- yeah.
I'm being rhetorical, but my point is that I think it should be approved, and then we can always, if we don't have satisfactory answers to the question that Denise asked, which are valid questions, and I agree with, we should do it, but to have to wait a whole nother cycle to go through this, I think is waiting too long for a project that we're trying to pull through and we're trying to put money through. So I would say, let's support it, and then we can always, we're not bound by that at that point.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mitch. Tell me again why we put this in one bundle and didn't do individual lots. It's 4 lots of land.
Correct. Individually at the moderator's discretion in the meeting, It was simply that our process over the last few years has been the least amount of articles possible. We made
No,
the change
understood.
in
Okay.
Well,
the
and we can
spring
do,
with that.
I mean, after we
Change
have the authorization, we can
You
do
could
whatever
simply
we
say
want
no.
with
Yeah.
the four,
Yeah.
Separate.
which I think
Yeah.
is important.
I think it's a good article, especially since we have designated 900,000 to go towards the cost as needed for the barn, to replenish that if something comes up. I think it's a long process of getting it assessed, and hopefully we'll have some Kleinfelder information and other things way before then. But it's going to take a long time. We need to get the approval and then start working on it, and that takes a long time. So I think it's good to get it going now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of just getting them into our hands and then this board looking at them. And if we, want to work with open space on, on some of them,
Yeah.
I think at least some of them are single-family house lots, which, I'm in favor of selling. But I think that, that we need to take a close look at all of the
Right.
lots
Yeah.
once it's in our hands, and then figure out what this board wants to
Yeah.
do on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
So,
Is it just for I?
So I'll offer a separate one then to do I on its
Okay.
own.
Okay.
Proper motion would be to recommend approval for J and K.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 0. Motion passes 5-0.
Proper motion would be to recommend approval for Article I.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
No.
and the motion passes 4-1. Okay.
Proper motion would be to do no motion for Article L.
so we just wouldn't move that one? We
Correct.
wouldn't not recommend it, we wouldn't?
Correct. It would just be, there'd be no motion to put
Okay,
forward.
which would probably help the other two pass.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Proper motion would be that there be no motion at town meeting for Article L.
Oh, a second, sorry.
That's good.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, 0. Motion passed 5-0.
Proper motion would be to recommend to approve Articles M and N.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and the motion passes 5-0.
And our Denise, they'll have people really knowledgeable, ready to present they're right here. Awesome. You're ready?
Yeah.
With all your facts?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then Article P, move that the board recommend Article P.
Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 0. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mitch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What do you think, Bob? 30 minutes, we're in and out of there?
Yeah, no problem.
You look like you just came in from Nantucket.
I just came from an Addison Gilbert Hospital fundraiser.
Oh, very nice.
Aren't you the
Soiree.
man about town?
Seem to be doing very well.
Yeah.
Soiree.
So, you want to do we'll go back to the walkthrough with the town administrator?
Yeah.
Excuse me, with the town moderator? G, do you have
Sure.
anything?
I have to leave in a minute, but I'll stay for as
Okay.
long as I can.
I don't have a lot. I think you did a great job here. My only comment would be that I went through the beginning of the government and bylaw committee as they went through some of these the environmental bylaws, and I really can see their worth to the town. Had they gotten some of those earlier and been able to really go through, because there's a lot of language issues and these are very complex. And I think that in the future, if they have a chance to fully vet that language and spend some time with it and have hearings and such, I think that will save a lot of time at town meeting, and you'd end up with a better work product that wouldn't require so many edits on town meeting floor, because those edits will have had a chance to been, vetted and discussed and everything. So I was very hopeful and positive about that.
Good. Good to get that group up and running.
Yeah.
And they'll have a lot of work to do with their
Yep. And I know that they expressed interest in addressing some of these through that process, tidying it up at that point, getting it fixed, so.
It was a little late for this go around.
Yeah.
But at least it showed us maybe a way for the future.
Okay, anything else, Bob?
I've nothing. I will have to, I think this will be a long meeting. I think the DPW facility will take some time and K, L, and M will take us some time, so we'll have to come up with another night.
You think it's 2 nights?
Perhaps sometime end of November, maybe.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I could see that, yeah.
When was the last time we went 2 nights?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I know that you
You were born, because I was born.
Yeah.
Oh. I feel like it was my first term.
Yeah.
I feel like it was
Yeah.
around 2010, maybe 2000. I don't know. I can look it up.
No, I came on 2009.
Okay, so maybe it was 8.
Yeah, it was early on in my tenure.
Yep.
Yep.
And, you know, I think I've expressed my desire to do these things in one meeting. I think we all get up for it and prepared, and when it goes a second night, it loses a lot.
Yes.
Like playing the 10th inning of a ball game a couple months later. It just doesn't have the same pizzazz.
Yeah.
11 minutes.
We'll try to get it through and get it done.
Yeah.
Good.
Bob, I do think it's oh, sorry, Cass.
Yeah.
I do think it's important. Monica and the Building Study Committee has done like an
Yeoman's work.
outstanding
Yep.
job getting all the information out there on the DPW facility. So, I mean, it's been online. It's it's literally everywhere for
Yep.
people.
Mm.
So I think it's important to like that we respect the process, because what happens is everyone wants to like complain on Facebook about it. Then Monica nicely posts that tomorrow night you can come and ask questions, and nobody says a word.
Yep.
So I think it's
They just wanna
important,
complain.
like in the effort. I mean, I know that town meeting is for discussion, but it's for discussion about like. I feel like it's discussion like yes or like pros and cons,
Right.
not like what like why do they need a new building? Do you know what I mean? It's not, because honestly, the time to do that work is now, and that's one of the reasons that people don't come to town meeting, because they
Right.
come and people ask questions that they could have spent the last 2 months
Yep.
asking.
Yeah, and you know, that's always a balancing act, because you're
Right.
right, you're talking about a timeline that started over here, and now we're over here, and people are asking questions about stuff over here. And so you have to be respectful of the fact that not everybody has been, following along, but you don't wanna drag it out
Right.
and start from scratch on a process that
Right.
really.
Because you want to be respectful of the people who have been,
That's right.
who
Yeah.
have been following along and want to come for one night.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't want to spend 2
Yeah.
nights listening to like why we need a salt shed.
Yeah. Bob, are
But we're
there any that
preaching
you
to
have to
the
group together, or are they already grouped under their
Well, I mean,
letter
the
anyway?
Community Preservation
That's
Act,
already
we always
grouped.
group together.
Yep.
Right.
But none have to be hooked together otherwise.
I haven't spent that much time with it, so I don't have the letters of all of them, but
Okay.
certainly the
Yeah.
environmental ones, the recycling ones will, I
Be
think,
together,
more effectively
CPC,
go
yep.
as a group.
Okay.
Prior year, money and transfers, we tend to do those together.
Okay.
And, nobody has really over the years complained about that, and I think that helps move
Oh, it does, yeah.
the meeting along, and
Absolutely.
it gets the same people.
Talking
We're
about
dealing
stuff.
with all of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep,
No, it makes total
absolutely.
sense.
It
Total
does.
sense.
Yep.
And with the internet, a lot of the excitement of the lottery has kind of gone away a little bit, and, so I try to group as many as seem
Yep,
logically
okay.
permissible to group.
Good.
Great.
Let's go, Monica?
With respect to the sale of town land and the DPW facility, I think there is a lot of confusion on how they're connected or not
Mhm.
connected. And I personally there's a lot of opposition building to the sale of the town lands. And I'm concerned that it may influence people to vote no on the facility because they don't want those lands sold. And so I don't know how it is conveyed that the two are distinct, and what happens on the sale
That's a
of
good
town
point.
land
Yeah.
has no
Yeah.
bearing on the facility.
Right.
But I'm afraid that it will influence
That can be,
people's decisions.
Yeah,
you
that
can
can
make
be
sure that
explained. Yeah.
that
Well,
is explained
yeah.
fully.
Want to emphasize,
Yeah.
I think
Right.
that
I
is
think I'm
information
speaking on
that's-
town.
I
I
don't
think I'm
see
speaking.
connecting those two, having them run necessarily.
Right, no, they shouldn't
No,
come
but does it
together.
make sense
But
to do
they're
the
linked.
sale of town land one first so that we can explain? Does it
That's fine.
matter?
Whatever comes
I
up,
think I'm
yeah.
speaking
Well,
on
they're
that
gonna be
one.
drawn by lottery
It's
though,
gotta
aren't
come
they?
by lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have
Yeah.
to get permission to do that.
Yeah.
Pretty high, standard.
Good.
Yeah.
Toby?
So I'll just, whenever that one comes up, I'll just explain that it's not, I'll explain both, and that it's not they're not directly connected.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I attended the Government and Bylaw Committee meeting. They found fault with a lot of the language, as Mr. Visnick has said, particularly Article K. The purpose and intent is written in, what is not even vaguely English. That needs to be rewritten. It shouldn't fall to me to be rewriting town meeting articles. I'll do it if needful, but you should, look at that. I mean, that's pathetic. The use of single-use or non-durable food service wares presents negative and impactful disturbances onto the natural and marine life surrounding the town of Rockport. I mean, that's
All right, all right.
pathetic.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Anyway, but that's perhaps trivial. What's important, I was promised a chance to speak with Mr. Visnick about my complaints and concerns after the last town meeting, specifically the decision that people can raise the amounts of money proposed in Article 5 budget articles. I don't know whether that applies to other articles or not. It needs to
Not
be.
now, not now. We're not gonna do it now. You can talk to him offline.
Well,
I've been for coffee, but I haven't heard from him.
Okay.
Well, I was told by Sarah Wilkinson when I brought the matter up here, the letter I wrote to Mr. Visnick, that we could discuss it when he came in to discuss the town meeting articles.
Yeah.
So I feel
I didn't know anything about this, and I'm just gonna keep moving.
it was said here at a public meeting
Okay.
when I referred to the letter.
Okay.
So it's generous of Mr. Visnick to offer to meet with me, but they're public concerns, not private ones.
Okay.
That everyone should know what's tolerable in terms of adding to articles and which articles, and also, why it would be out of order to move to cut the transfers. So my feeling is that, perhaps it is a misunderstanding, but people are being deprived of their rights at the town meeting, and whether or not they're being deprived, it's not clear what is tolerable or doable and what is not. And it isn't just a matter of explaining to me, it's a matter of the public generally knowing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? All right, let's move on. Anything else, Mr. Moderator?
Nothing comes to mind unless you have any questions.
Nope.
No.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay, we're gonna go right to the action list. Approval of leases. Thanks, Sarah.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Is there a motion?
You want to do hers?
Yeah, I move that the selectmen approve and sign a 3-year lease with Kenneth Lane of 38 South Street in Rockport for the use of Waring Field as authorized by the September 14th, 1998 Fall Town Meeting for the primary purpose of grazing horses and cows for the annual rent amount of $350.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Were we able to clarify the issue that Dave
back.
raised?
Yeah,
It's in the
but
packet.
It's in the
Oh,
packet,
okay.
fertilizer.
Yep,
and-
fertilizer.
Oh, right, okay.
There
yep.
is no fertilizer.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, 0. The motion passes 4-0. Cranberry Marsh.
I move that the selectmen approve and sign a 3-year lease with Kenneth Lane of 38 South Street in Rockport for the property known as Cranberry Marsh, as authorized by the March 21st, 1998 annual town meeting for the primary purpose of grazing horses and cows for their annual rent amount of $350.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. The motion passes 4-0. That voice always reminds you of when you did all those.
All
for like
those motions.
Yeah, a town meeting.
Time after time.
One after another. Okay, we did board stances on town meeting articles. Unanticipated business or announcements?
None.
None.
Good. Great, and we are going to go into executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for exception number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with ASME Local 1679 supervisors and foremen, ASME Local 1679 General Unit, and MCOP Local 154 sergeants and patrol officers. Votes may be taken.
We are going into executive session because by not doing so, it would be detrimental to the town's bargaining position. The board will not reconvene in open session. Roll call vote. Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Ms. George.
Aye.
Ms. Donnelly.
Aye.
Mr. Murphy, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.